Welcome, and thank you all for being here at our 15th annual Women of Achievement Dinner. We trust you will be uplifted, especially during these times, by our inspirational and educational program of Legal Momentum, the country's oldest legal defense and education fund for women. As we always have said for 50 years, protecting women's and girls' rights begins with the law. So why are we here? I think the best way to explain is to read the actual program from our first annual Women of Achievement Award dinner held on April 25th, 2006. Here we go. Legal Momentum, Advancing Women's Rights. 36 years ago, the founders of Legal Momentum made a solemn promise to America's women. We won't stop until your opportunity to participate fully and equally in our society is guaranteed by the laws and policies of the nation. Every day, we rededicate ourselves to that promise. As we look back at each victory and expansion of rights, we can feel pride in the creation of new opportunities for women. With every legal achievement, we are building momentum for advancing women and girls across America. We are proud of our distinguished record of leadership. It is our pleasure to honor 4 extraordinary women among the most significant in American business and law whose personal leadership has broken new ground. And now let me introduce our keynote speaker and public service honoree, the Honorable Kamala Harris, San Francisco District Attorney. Yes. So here we are now, 50 years after our founders made the promise, and we continue to strive to fulfill that promise every day. But of course, we cannot do this without your support, and I'd like to thank and acknowledge our corporate sponsors, Orrick Harrington and Sutcliffe, Uber, Chevron Corporation, DLL Piper, Fish and Richardson, Gibson, Dunn and Crutcher, Kaplan, Hecker and Fink, Lathan and Watkins, Morgan, Lewis and Bacchius, M Legal Group, Perkins Coy, San Diego Gas and Electric, Steptoe and Johnson, and TM Financial Forensics. Thank you all. So without further ado, let's get started. I am pleased to introduce my longtime friend and colleague, Marlene Timberlake D'Adamo, who will give our keynote speech, Driving Women's Advancement, Championing Gender Equity. Marlene is the Chief Compliance Officer of CalPERS and has over 25 years of finance and investment experience. But what I'd like to highlight is that Marlene always steps up to do more than her primary role. At one point, she stepped in to be the interim Chief Financial Officer of CalPERS. And now I'm so pleased to announce that Marlene was just appointed interim Chief Diversity Officer of CalPERS. Marlene.
Hello and welcome. As Carol mentioned, my name is Marlene Timberlake D'Adamo. I am a mother, wife, daughter, sister, aunt, grandchild, and friend. I am a woman. My professional experience includes being Chief Compliance Officer and Interim Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer at CalPERS. I was an executive at an asset management firm and bank and a practicing attorney. We are here to recognize Legal Momentum's Women of Achievement honorees. It is very gratifying to see women recognized for such wide-ranging achievements. Noteworthy and special still is the fact that this community comes together year after year to provide the love, support, and encouragement necessary to keep going despite what might seem insurmountable odds. What is special about this year and why I am so encouraged and excited is that Legal Momentum is recognizing a man of distinction. Yes, a man of distinction. It is simple to me that men must be part of the solution. First, They serve as champions to women's advancement. They open up pipelines and create opportunities for women. We need them to continue to do that and more. We need more of them to join forces with women to drive both advancement and equality. In this moment, we cannot afford for half of us to be on the sidelines. I applaud Legal Momentum for choosing a man of distinction. Tony West is Legal Momentum's man of distinction. The theme for this event is driving women's advancement and championing gender equality. What I love about the theme is that it references two concepts, advancement and equality. These are not fighting words. They are not meant to antagonize people. No one needs to be afraid of women's advancement and equality. It does not have to be a zero-sum game. What we have seen over the past few years is that there is room at the table for women and diverse people. There is room, and their perspectives and talents are needed, now more than ever. What are some of the most effective ways to drive women's advancement? Several things come to mind. Recognition. Acknowledging women who lead not only encourages continued leadership, but brings attention and support to those who might step forward. Legal Momentum has been recognizing the achievements of women for more than 15 years. The next two suggestions involve the talent pipeline. First, get more women into the pipelines. Where there's a trickle, make it a gush. Increasing the pipeline allows more women to participate. The next suggestion is to increase opportunities for women. This is not a new concept, and while there are efforts literally everywhere to increase opportunities for women, it is still worth noting that opportunity allows her to showcase her talents and climb that ladder. I consider myself a beneficiary of this. Opportunities to showcase my own talents and abilities have come from supporters of all types: men, women, bosses, colleagues, mentors, friends, and family, many of whom have either helped me remove barriers or have cleared the way for me. The second theme for today's event is championing gender equality. Equality means access to quality education for women and girls. Equality means basic dignity, including freedom from abuse and violence, a major tenet of Legal Momentum, might I add. Addressing inequality has become a rallying cry across the world. Today, hard questions are being asked of leaders, governments, institutions, and corporations as our society reconciles its self-view as reflected in the eyes of a world that is watching. Now, major segments of our society are seeing the effects of inequality, and some for the first time. They are seeing how inequality affects outcomes, particularly in areas such as education, healthcare, and housing. I had no idea back in March, when we were scheduled to have this celebration, that by the time I gave this address, this country would be in the middle of a health pandemic that has taken hundreds of thousands of lives globally. A recession caused by the pandemic, both of which have hit women and minority communities disproportionately. And last, but certainly not least, a racial reckoning the likes of which we have not seen before. In closing, I would like to thank Legal Momentum for its efforts at advancing women and fighting for gender equality. I would like to recognize their work in advancing social justice and justice within the courts. I ask that you continue to support women's advancement and equality. Thank you.
It's my great pleasure today to introduce to you my friend and colleague, Ann Patterson. Ann works with me here in Governor Gavin Newsom's office as a Chief Deputy Legal Secretary, a role in which she has led on many important issues, including working as the lead lawyer in the PG&E bankruptcy case, which was really all about protecting Californians so that we'll have safe, affordable, and reliable energy. But before coming to the governor's office, Ann was a law partner at Orrick, Harrington, and Sutcliffe. Everywhere that Ann has gone, whether at the law firm or in public service, where she also has worked for the California Attorney General, Ann has often sought out ways to help the most vulnerable among us, including women and girls. When Ann was at the Attorney General's office, she noticed that there was a backlog of 30,000 untested sexual assault kits in evidence lockers across the state. Ann presented a plan to her boss, then Attorney General Bill Lockyer, and asked that the office work to fund a massive new state and local DNA testing program that really built the foundation of the state's DNA evidence testing capacity and led to the state's first cold hits in sexual assault cases. Most recently, while working at Orrick, Ann and her team worked with Legal Momentum to launch an initiative to bring awareness to attorneys general and state legislators across the United States about legal loopholes that limit the ability to prosecute perpetrators of sexual extortion. As part of that effort, Ann and her team worked with legislators across the country, including California, to update their statutes to fully recognize sexual extortion. I'm so thrilled that you're honoring Ann today, and I'm very honored myself to deliver the Women of Achievement Award to my friend in recognition of her work. I look forward to many more years of working in partnership with Ann and know that she can do so much more good for women and girls and for all Californians. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ann. I'd like to begin by recognizing Carol Baldwin Moody and the entire team at Legal Momentum for their important and tireless work to advocate for legal changes that empower women and advance their economic and personal security. It really is quite humbling and such an honor to be recognized by an institution with such a distinguished and long history of advocacy for women. I feel like the entire team from Legal Momentum belongs here with me today to accept this award because it was Legal Momentum back in 2015 that really first lifted up the issue of online sexual extortion and invited me and a team of attorneys at Orrick to get involved and fight for change. Together, Legal Momentum, the Thomson Reuters Foundation, and Orrick prepared a report, A Call to Action, Ending Sextortion in the Digital Age. That report identified legal loopholes that prevented the full prosecution of sexual extortion, particularly when there was an adult victim and the offender could not be charged under child pornography laws. That report brought much needed attention to the issue of sexual extortion when it was proliferating online due to the rise of social media, but still receiving very little public attention. It was important work, but we decided we could not stop there. So a team of lawyers at Legal Momentum and Orrick developed a multi-state strategy to change the law. The initiative involved dozens of lawyers scouring state penal codes and drafting amendments to close loopholes. We met with attorneys general, district attorneys, civil liberty groups, and lawmakers from across the country. And we built understanding and consensus. And the laws that were enacted in California and across the country will help ensure that perpetrators of sexual extortion can be prosecuted even when their victims are over 18. I specifically want to acknowledge the work of two people, Jennifer Becker from Legal Momentum in New York and Suman Tatapudi, my good friend and former colleague at Orrick. Jennifer and Suman were my partners throughout this project. They are amazing women and brilliant lawyers, and thank you for your work on this. I also want to thank Orrick for its unwavering support for this project and for the open checkbook. And I want to thank the dozens of lawyers at Orrick whose hard work and great legal research made this project a reality. This was a huge team effort, and I am so proud of the work that we did. But there is so much more that's left to be done. Sexual extortion is rarely a single occurrence. Without intervention from law enforcement, it can go on for months and sometimes years, and it often escalates dangerously. These are also complicated and often multi-jurisdictional crimes. We need to help law enforcement to understand these crimes, to take them seriously, and to develop the tools and resources to collaborate across jurisdictions to investigate and prosecute perpetrators. Even more important, however, I think is prevention. During my work on this project, I saw so many young lives upended by this crime. According to the FBI, 1/3 of sexual extortion victims attempt suicide. That is unacceptable. It is critical that we work collaboratively with social media companies, law enforcement, schools, and parents to educate young people about the risks that they face online and how to protect themselves. And we must do this in a way that does not blame the victim. I look forward to continuing this important work, and I want to thank Legal Momentum again for its partnership to bring awareness and action to the issue of sexual extortion, and for recognizing me this year with the Women of Achievement Award. Thank you.
I'm also so delighted to introduce you to another friend of mine, the great Senator Connie Leyva. Connie Leyva has served in California State Senate for 2 terms now, where she serves the Inland Empire from Pomona to San Bernardino. I've got to know Connie because she is just an incredible champion for women and girls here in Sacramento, where she chairs the Women's Legislative Caucus. I was so proud to watch her last year as she championed and sponsored a bill that provided access to medication for abortion services on California public university campuses, a bill that Governor Gavin Newsom was happy to sign. And it was so noteworthy because it was at a time in which other state senates and state legislators in the country were rolling back abortion services, and Senator Leyva was ensuring that we were making forward progress. In addition to that, Senator Leyva has been an incredible champion for child care, and I've seen her be a passionate fighter, particularly now as we are in this very difficult time with so many women trying to find the struggle between working and often what are essential jobs, trying to make sure that their families have what they need to continue on during this difficult time, and still need childcare. I've seen Senator Leyva stand up again and again for women. I've seen her do it on childcare, and I've seen her do it even more recently on the fight to make sure that we have job protection for paid family leave. I'm so delighted that you are honoring Senator Leyva with a much-deserved prestigious award by Legal Momentum. I personally look forward to continually working with Senator Leyva for many years to come as we work for women and girls, and I congratulate her on this great honor today. Thank you.
Hello. I would like to begin by thanking all of you, and particularly Legal Momentum, for honoring me with this amazing Woman of Achievement Award. It is such a great honor and privilege to be honored by such an amazing group of women and enlightened men who are committed to advancing the rights of women and girls. Just a few years ago in 2017, I was proud to work with Legal Momentum to criminalize sextortion here in California. SB 500 took the existing revenge porn law to the next level by punishing the threat of distributing sexually explicit pictures in demand for sex or more pictures. Simply put, victims were robbed of their sense of safety and dignity when perpetrators threatened the release of their sexually explicit pictures. Since I was sworn into office in 2014, I've been so thrilled to be able to author and pass important laws, including eliminating the statute of limitations on rape, banning secret settlements in sexual harassment, assault, and discrimination cases, requiring the prompt testing of rape kits, protecting victims of human trafficking, eliminating the use of political funds to fight assault and harassment claims, requiring public universities to provide medication abortion, permanently extending overtime for domestic workers. All in all, I've had a total of 38 bills signed into law over the past 5 years, but our work continues. You may have heard about 2 pieces of legislation that I introduced earlier this year, which, due to COVID-19, I have decided to postpone so that we can focus on the urgent pandemic response. The first bill will make sure that hundreds of young women that participate in Girls State every year are treated the same as Boys State participants. Our young women leaders should also be able to visit the state capitol, not pay fees, and have access to college night, all of which Boys State young men already do, but Girls State young women do not. The other bill, also known as the Forbid Lewd Activity and Sexual Harassment FLASH Act, will ban sending unsolicited lewd pictures and videos also known as cyber flashing. It is so important that we hold these perpetrators accountable and in this modern form of flashing and sexual harassment. Though these two efforts are on hold for the time being, I look forward to continuing to work on them as soon as we are able. As the chair of the Legislative Women's Caucus and the Senate Education Committee, and as a mom of 2 daughters, I am so grateful to be in a position now to help enact lasting change. And it is by partnering with organizations like Legal Momentum that we are able to move the ball forward in both the Capitol and across California and across the nation. So I'd like to thank you for honoring me again with this truly wonderful award. I will cherish it always. Our work isn't done, but together I have every confidence that we will continue to improve the lives of women and girls in California and across the country. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight, I have the great honor of introducing my friend and fellow partner at Fish & Richardson, Betty Chen. Many of you, no doubt, already know Betty. Her list of accolades is a mile long. Among other things, she's been named a top 40 young lawyer by the American Bar Association, a 2020 diversity leader, and a woman worth watching in STEM by the Profiles in Diversity Journal, a best lawyer under 40 by the National Asian Pacific Bar Association, and a woman of influence by the Silicon Valley Business Journal. She is, hands down, one of the finest IP litigators I have ever had the privilege of working with. In fact, I am grateful to have Betty as a partner so that I will not be facing her as opposing counsel. In the words of Frank Schirkenbach, one of the senior principals in our firm and one of the most highly sought after lead trial attorneys in the country, Betty has a winning combination of smarts, presence, and common sense that instills confidence in clients, judges, and juries. In addition to being a stellar attorney, Betty sits on the advisory board of directors of the Asian Law Alliance, a nonprofit organization here in the Bay Area. She also regularly volunteers on a pro bono basis for Kids in Need of Defense, an organization that helps children find a safe haven and freedom from fear. Betty is also the firm-wide hiring partner at Fish, and it is the way in which she has approached this role that caused me to nominate her for this honor. She not only actively recruits high-caliber attorneys with an eye towards recruiting diverse attorneys, she also pays attention to what happens to these attorneys after they join our firm. She has been active in changing the onboarding process at Fish, and in particular, ensuring that new attorneys are properly introduced throughout the firm and given the tools needed to succeed and thrive once they have arrived here at Fish, be that by being staffed on active matters or receiving assistance with business development endeavors. In doing so, Betty not only supports other women, she pushes them up so they can reach their full potential. And as a woman partner who lateraled to Fish just 2 years ago, I can say with confidence that Betty's efforts are making a difference. Please join me in congratulating and celebrating Betty Chen.
Hello, everybody, and thank you, Aisha, for her very kind introduction. Aisha is quite simply a fantastic ally, supporter of women, and overall just a wonderful human being. I would like to first begin by thanking Legal Momentum and its board for granting me with this honor. It's especially rewarding to be included in the ranks of all of its current and past honorees, many of whom have made such important contributions to all of the many great principles and causes of Legal Momentum. Of Legal Momentum's many initiatives, one that's really near and dear to me, and so it's something that I wanted to spend a couple minutes talking about today, is the substantial efforts towards achieving workplace equality and economic empowerment for women everywhere. And I do so here today because in receiving this award, it really made me stop and think about the many people who have propelled me forward to this day. And I've realized that it's not really with any grand gestures, but many everyday acts of inclusion and acceptance. And so to illustrate my point, I thought I'd take you to a place you probably didn't expect to go, even virtually, and that place is Sabine Lake. So Sabine Lake is a large saltwater bay outside of Port Arthur, Texas, and it kind of straddles the Texas-Louisiana border. So the lake is a really important industrial waterway for its surrounding communities, but I came to know it through a different pursuit, and that is fishing. And I'm not just talking about this because my law firm is also named Fish, but Sabine Lake is home to lots of different wild game fish. And it just so happened that my first employer in the legal profession is an avid fisherman, Judge Ron Clark of the Eastern District of Texas. So I grew up in Houston, Texas, and Judge Clark's chambers in the nearby town of Beaumont. And when I moved there in the mid-2000s to accept the clerkship, he really helped me quickly acclimate to the profession and the life in Beaumont, both of which was pretty unfamiliar to me. And he did that not just by including me in activities of his busy patent docket, but he also included me in some of his favorite pastimes as well, and that included fishing. So I'll never forget having to wake up early, and I'm talking like 5 a.m. on a Saturday, because I never want to be late for a federal judge, even if it's for fishing. But all of those early mornings were really worth it because it was on that lake and in the fishing boat where I really got to know Judge Clark and his family, and I learned about his life as a practicing attorney, and how he approached cases. And he really provided me with not just a mentor, but he is now a lifelong friend. And that matters because as we strive here today to create greater opportunities in the workplace for diverse colleagues, we're going to find that the difference between welcoming a diverse colleague with true and real gestures of friendship, as opposed to offering just mere formalities of organizational inclusion, that's going to be a huge gap that we need to bridge. And that gap is wider than Sabine Lake itself. So my closing message is a simple one, and it operates on what I think is a very human level. That is, invest an hour or two in getting to know something meaningful about everybody in your ecosphere. Find ways to participate in their pastimes and customs when you can, and invite them to do the same with you. And I'm saying all of this because during these very uncertain and difficult times, which is isolating for all of us, it's more isolating for all of those in the fringes who are entering a profession that is unfamiliar. So although we might be prone to also seeing the objectives of workplace equality and economic empowerment as lying outside on the other side of a barrier that's only surmountable by something as big as an army, just remember that every fortress was built with at least one door opening in, and all it takes is a friend to open it for you. So thank you again for your time and for this wonderful honor. I wish everybody well.
Wow. I told you it would be inspiring, and there's more to come. But as you can see, there's still work to do. I urge you to read our policy brief released on July 16th, Eradicating Long-Standing Disparities, a Gender Equality Agenda for Lawmakers for the Post-COVID-19 World. In our comprehensive analysis, we build on our 50 years of work tackling gender inequality to shed light on how the COVID-19 pandemic is impacting every aspect of women's lives in disproportionate yet familiar ways. I also urge you to continue your support, and you can find the way to donate on your screen. Please continue your support. Thank you.
My name is Loria Yaden, and I'm the president and CEO of the YMCA of Greater Seattle. It's my distinct pleasure to present the Women of Achievement Award to Kathleen O'Sullivan, better known to many of us as Katie. With more than 20 years of practice, Katie has worked on a wide range of trial court cases and appeals, with a deep focus on representing Fortune 100 and other leading companies across industries in consumer class actions or other related cases pending across the country. Katie sees her role as serving as a trusted advisor to achieve her clients' objectives. Katie has also worked on appeals across a broad spectrum of legal issues, including antitrust, contracts and business torts, ERISA, product labeling, privacy, and product liability. In all of her cases, as well as her leadership within the litigation practice, Katie has deeply invested in improving the quality of the firm's written and oral advocacy. As the chair of Perkins Coie's Executive Committee, Katie leads the 16-member executive committee in its strategic, policymaking, and oversight functions, while working closely with the firm's management committee. Prior to becoming chair of the firm-wide executive committee, Katie served for 3 years as firm-wide chair of Perkins Coie's litigation practice, leading a team of more than 250 lawyers in 16 U.S. offices. While working on big cases for great companies, Katie has devoted thousands of hours to pro bono matters. She has volunteered her time to improve the legal profession as a whole, having served on the Washington State Bar Association Board of Governors and chaired the Washington State Commission on Judicial Conduct. Katie currently serves on the American Law Institute Council and the 9th Judicial Circuit Historical Society Board. And last but not least, Katie currently serves as the immediate past board chair of the Board of Directors of the YMCA of Greater Seattle. I've had the enviable opportunity to get to know Katie and see her dedication to developing women in the legal profession and her heart for community. She's the real deal, and she is the ultimate professional, role model, and friend. Katie, congratulations.
Thank you so much, Loria, for nominating me for the Women of Achievement Award. It is you who has achieved so much. I would like to focus my brief remarks on the theme of gratitude. I'm grateful for the opportunities that were given to me as a young woman and now as an older one, as the result of work that is at the core of what Legal Momentum does. Let me give you 2 examples. First, I am the direct beneficiary of Title IX. In the 1980s, I was able to play 3 varsity sports as a college freshman, and I went on to play a total of 9 seasons on the field hockey, ice hockey, and lacrosse teams at Yale. This past year, I went to my first field hockey reunion, and I met the founders of the team. When they began, there was no organized team, no coach, no uniforms, not even their own field. We had all of those things and more. We just took them for granted. But what I've learned is those changes, it was no accident. It was because the first class of women at Yale included a few who wanted to play field hockey, and they were tenacious in persuading the university to make it a full-fledged team. Thank you, Lori Mifflin. Just months after Title IX was signed into law in 1972, the field hockey team became the first women's varsity sport at Yale. I'm so grateful for the lawmakers, the advocates, and allies who gave me and so many others the opportunity to play varsity sports in college. It taught me resilience because on those teams at Yale, we experienced the agony of defeat far more than the thrill of victory. It surrounded me with a sisterhood of strong women, and it gave me early lessons in leadership. And now, here from my home office in Seattle, I have my lucky Yale ice hockey puck next to me at all times here. The second example involves my profession, the practice of law. When Justice O'Connor graduated from law school in 1952, near the top of her class at Stanford, no law firm would hire her. She got her first job by volunteering to work unpaid at a local district attorney's office. Justice Ginsburg says that Justice O'Connor once said to her, "Think about what our lives would have been if there'd been no discrimination. We'd be retired partners from some law firm." What a difference there is between 1952, when Justice O'Connor graduated from law school, and 1996, when I graduated from law school. Firms across the country opened their doors to me and many other women. At the time, I didn't know that I was making one of the most important decisions of my life, picking a firm. But in choosing to join Perkins Coie, I joined a law firm that was not only receptive to allowing women to practice, but one that was committed to see them empowered. At Perkins Coie, I now serve as the firm-wide chair of the executive committee, and I'm so grateful to my firm and to our innovative clients for giving me and hundreds of other women the opportunity to thrive. And I'm grateful for those who paved the way at Perkins Coie, especially our first woman partner, Margaret McEwen, now Judge McEwen, who recruited me to the firm many years ago. And I'm grateful to the lawmakers, the allies, and advocates like Legal Momentum, who have created opportunities for women to succeed in the practice of law and in so many other professions. Thank you, Legal Momentum, for this hefty recognition. And congratulations to all the fellow award recipients. It is an honor to be recognized by Legal Momentum and with all of you.
I am really thrilled to be able to introduce Kristen Go for the honor that you all are bestowing on her. She is such a deserving person. Kristen has been a terrific leader throughout her career, a journalism career that has taken her from Phoenix to San Francisco and other places in between. She is someone who has given our news operation, USA Today, a great vision and great leadership in national news coverage at a time when we have had many, many, many big events to be dealing with in this country. Kristen is someone who is looked upon by her peers, by her co-workers as a person who's a great colleague, someone who leads by example, who is mentoring, who is an advocate when she has to be, and also can be, the kind of critic whose words mean something as far as helping you become better. She is someone that I look to on a personal level as a great sounding board, someone who's wise and always good-natured about the challenges that we face, and comes at problems with a very creative mindset that helps us improve as a news organization. She has done a lot of really important work, led a lot of important areas of coverage around diversity, equality, inclusion, which I think are really fitting things in light of the award that she's receiving tonight. She sets the example for us in coverage that helps us explore issues about social justice and equality, and will be taking on an even bigger role for us in that area on the national desk as we are about to expand our coverage dramatically to get deep at issues in this country that affect social equality, justice for all. And Kristen is absolutely the best leader to help us move forward in that direction. So congratulations to Kristen, such a richly deserved honor. She is a great honoree and someone who has made USA Today a much better news organization.
Thank you for this incredible honor. And I'm humbled to be recognized with so many distinguished women and men. I wish we could all be in the room together to feel the energy, but if the delay in our celebration has shown us anything, it's that the work for equality and justice is needed like never before. My path to journalism started when I was in high school. As a natural introvert, working as a reporter gave me good cover to ask any question I wanted from anyone. As a teenager, I wrote about policies that explored sexual harassment on campus and documented the trauma of a teen being sexually assaulted. From an early age, I learned the power of storytelling. Stories can engage, they can inform, and most importantly, they can have a lasting impact. One of the most memorable projects was my very first as a cub reporter at the Denver Post. The project centered on family violence. At the time, I was a rookie hoping to do impactful work. I came to our meetings full of ideas and nearly everyone was rejected. But I kept digging for angles to help educate our readers through our series called The War Next Door. One of my stories focused on a man who had more than 29 arrests over 10 years. 24 of them were related to domestic violence, and yet he never spent any time in prison. Domestic violence advocates called him the worst repeat offender in the state. He moved from county to county, committing crimes against women. After my story ran, the offender faced new charges and the possibility of 16 years in prison and $600,000 in fines. His victims could finally breathe a sigh of relief. But more importantly, it led to changes to help stop repeat offenders. Thanks to a $1.7 million grant from the Violence Against Women Act, which was championed by Legal Momentum, the state began looking at how to more closely link court records. But the work to protect victims of violence is not done. Nearly 20 years later, when I started at USA Today, I was pitched a story by an editor and reporter. Why is Alaska the most deadly state for women? 59% of women there have experienced violence. We sent a reporter there for 9 days to document the problem. Not long after our story ran, President Trump issued an executive order to help solve the murders of the women there. Sadly, the story we wrote about from Alaska has so many parallels to the stories I wrote as a cub reporter in Colorado. While we have made progress, there are still many injustices to uncover, to fight for, and to end. In just the past few months, we've seen this pandemic strike women and people of color disproportionately. For some, it's suffering from the abuse of a loved one at home. Others, it's scaling back on work to care for family members. And for others, it's deciding between their own health and choosing between their job. As a community, we need people like the ones we're celebrating today to help shine a light on the inequities in our society, and we need organizations like Legal Momentum to help create policies and protections that better all of us. Thank you to Legal Momentum for this honor, and I challenge each of you to not just think about what you can do to help, but to create a plan of action to help.
Good evening, everyone. Since I have the privilege of introducing my good friend Tony West, I'm going to tell you a story about him that pretty much tells you everything that you need to know about the kind of person that he is. Here's the backdrop. When we filed the Windsor case, my client Edie Windsor was 82 years old. She had suffered a severe heart attack and was still managing a serious heart condition. Being the neurotic person that I sometimes, maybe often am, I was very worried that she may not be alive to see a victory in the case when and if we got one. Shortly after filing the complaint, I got a call from the trial attorney at the Department of Justice asking me for an extension. Because the government automatically gets 60 days, and because I can be a tad stubborn sometimes, I said, effectively, forget about it. I then got another call a few minutes later from another DOJ attorney, this time the supervising attorney, asking me the exact same question. He said, Robbie, the government's trying to decide what to do in this case. We'd like another 30 days. Again, I said, no way. 20 minutes later, my phone rang again for the third time. And this time, the person on the other side of the line was Tony West, who was then the Assistant Attorney General of the Civil Division. Tony said to me, Robbie, what is this I hear about you not giving the government an extension? I'm telling you that President Obama, Attorney General Holder, and I need to decide whether or not to defend the constitutionality of DOMA, and we need time to do so. So I'm asking you for another 30 days. Believe it or not, in response, I said something like, Let me think about it. I hung up the phone and I went to talk to a friend next door. He said to me, "Are you crazy? President Obama is asking you for an extension. Give him the extension." So I called Tony back. I have to admit that at this point, I thought the government wasn't really serious about considering whether or not to change its position on defending DOMA. I assumed instead that this was a politically sensitive case and that the government wanted more time to decide what to do. So I agreed to give Tony the extension. But then I added at the end of the call in a somewhat cynical tone of voice, "I just want you to know, Tony, that when you and the President and the Attorney General consider what to do, I will be praying for you." Sitting here today, I'm not exactly proud of that statement, but it is exactly what I had the chutzpah to say. 30 days later, I received an email from Tony on my BlackBerry. It was back in 2010, so everyone was still using BlackBerries, scheduling a phone call. I knew right away that it meant that the government had changed its mind. I have to tell you that it was the single most surprising thing that happened in the entire Windsor case. In other words, I thought from the very beginning that we would win the case, but I did not think that the government would actually change sides. On that call, Tony explained that he and the President and Attorney General Holder had gone through the factors that courts consider in deciding whether or not a group like LGBT people should get heightened scrutiny. They decided that the laws that treat gay people differently should receive heightened scrutiny, that meant that DOMA was therefore unconstitutional, and that they would no longer be defending it in court. I literally had tears streaming down my face during that call. At the end of the call, Tony said to me, "Robbie, you remember what you said to me about praying for the president?" At this point, sheepish, I said to him, "Yes." And he said, "Well, I just want you to know that sometimes prayer works." I now know that Tony West did what he did in the Windsor case for one reason and one reason only, because it was the right thing to do. And while I want to be very careful about making comparisons between the continuing, ever-present struggle of African Americans for basic civil rights with the struggle of LGBT people, I believe in my heart and my bones that it was not a coincidence that it was 3 African American men, President Obama, Attorney General Holder, and Tony West, who made that decision that day. The same thing, of course, is true for women. That's why Tony, now the General Counsel of Uber, had the foresight and the courage to tackle heads-on the enormous societal problem of sexual assault by commissioning the Uber Safety Report, the first ever such study by an American company. And let me use Tony's own words because he explains it better than anyone possibly could. Here's what he said. In the United States alone, more than 45 rides on Uber happen every second. At that scale, we are not immune to society's most serious safety challenges, including sexual assault. Voluntarily publishing a report that discusses these difficult safety issues is not easy. Most companies don't talk about issues like sexual violence because doing so risks inviting negative headlines and public criticism. But we feel it's time for a new approach. As someone who has prosecuted sex crimes and worked on these issues for more than 25 years, I can tell you that that new approach is sorely needed. Confronting sexual violence requires honesty, and it's only by shining a light on these issues that we can begin to provide clarity on something that touches every corner of society. I could not, as the co-chair of the Board of Time's Up, I could not agree with every single one of those words more. The executive director of the National Network to End Domestic Violence agrees. She observed that Tony's unprecedented decision to publicly share data was, quote, a game changer and something that we don't see very often. As she explained, if we want to end sexual violence in one generation, we need more data and more companies like Uber and like Tony willing to step up and be accountable. If I hadn't already made it clear by now, Tony is the kind of person who not only talks the talk, but he walks the walk. That's why his daughter, Mina Harris, has said that the 2 most important things that men can do to make this world a better place are to show up and to create spaces for women. Tony has done both. I can think of no man who has consistently done that more than Tony. And given the timing, I can't help but note that it is hardly surprising that Tony's sister-in-law will be and the first ever African American, Asian American woman vice presidential candidate and hopefully vice president in the United States history. I only wish that we lived in different times and that I could in person give Tony a hug as opposed to doing this virtually. But I am confident that with new leadership on the horizon, including Tony's sister-in-law Kamala as our next vice president, that day will come soon. For the time being, it is such a huge honor and pleasure to be able to present Tony with this well-deserved award.
First, let me thank my good friend Robbie Kaplan for those incredibly kind words of introduction and for being such a courageous champion for women and for civil and human rights. Robbie, your work has been as transformative as it's been historic, and I know I'm among many who admire you and are grateful for your leadership and your guidance. So I was really looking forward to being with all of you in person as originally planned back in March, but oh, how the world has changed since then. I hope all of you are staying healthy and are doing as well as you can be during this very challenging time. I know the days are starting to blend together and everyone is juggling an awful lot. But I also know that struggle is something that's not new to this organization. For the past 50 years, Legal Momentum has overcome and broken through countless barriers, walls, ceilings, all of it to pave the way for gender equality rights. And that's why I'm so incredibly humbled that you've honored me with your Man of Distinction Award this year. You know, it's really hard to believe that within my lifetime, male-only jobs were still legal. And while most of those vestiges of legalized gender discrimination, they've been condemned to the past, the fight against cultural, financial, and opportunity barriers to gender equality is, well, as you well know, still very real. Throughout my career, I've tried to focus on bringing people in, on expanding the decision-making table, and making diversity and inclusion a real priority. And I've seen time and again in both the public and private sectors that when women are at the table, organizations, they make better decisions. And businesses, they have better results. And I've been really blessed throughout my life. Some of my greatest teachers, mentors, and leaders, they've been women. From my mother, a music instructor who was my first teacher and who still gives me piano lessons over Zoom, to U.S. Attorney General Janet Reno, my first mentor in the law, to my sister-in-law, who's broken barriers all her life and is poised to do so again as the first Black woman nominated by a major political party for Vice President of the United States, to my wife, whose extraordinary life example as a racial and gender justice advocate and author, well, that inspires me to do better every single day. And having grown up learning from and admiring strong women making a difference in the world, it's perhaps no surprise that at Uber, my leadership team is comprised mostly of dynamic, intelligent women whose voices reflect unique experiences and points of view that inform our work and enrich our policies, enhance our products, and improve our corporate culture. Now look, I'll be the first to admit that at Uber, we still have a long way to go in all of those areas. But I'm proud of the progress that we've made over the past few years to achieve pay equity, tie diversity and inclusion to executive compensation, improve the safety and transparency of our platform when it comes to women's safety, and tailor our employee benefits in ways that help women succeed. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that achieving gender equality is not a destination, a place that you arrive at all of a sudden and then you're done. No, achieving gender equality, that's a journey. It's a process that requires constant vigilance. It's not a special project that a single executive or team or department can manage. The gender equality agenda has to be part of an organization's DNA, part of everything an institution or a company does. It has to be intentional. It must be ingrained in the routine work that managers and employees and boards of directors, the work that they do every single day of every single year. That's how change is made. And that work just doesn't depend on you, Legal Momentum. Success in this effort means that men have a responsibility to be strong allies as well, to help elevate the roles and voices of women at every opportunity in boardrooms, courthouses, and at ballot boxes across the country. And that's a responsibility I wholeheartedly embrace. And working together, step by step, I know that we can continue making a difference for future generations of women and girls. So happy 50th anniversary, Legal Momentum, and thank you again for this incredible honor.
Thank you to everyone for being here. And especially thank you to our honorees. I know their stories will continue to uplift me and so many others, especially during these difficult times. Have a good evening and stay well.